Some of the aircraft have been preserved, although it's very unlikely that Concorde will be flown commercially again. Well, we can cross live now to our transport correspondent, Richard Westcott. He's at Manchester Airport, just about to board. Richard.
Yeah, I've had a lovely morning, frankly, playing around with this Concorde. This is one of the flagship Concordes, actually, from the fleet, BOAC. And if we actually look down, that shape, I mean, it's so iconic, you could identify it anywhere. It still looks as modern and as elegant as it ever did, didn't it? But of course, it was a hugely controversial aircraft. It was controversial when they retired it. People said they'd retired it too soon. And of course, there were people who said, look, it burns lots of fuel and it's incredibly noisy as well. Anyway, we're celebrating the retirement today. And yesterday, we caught up with a guy called Martin, who flew this very plane around the world.
For many, it's still the most beautiful machine ever made. A source of national pride, our chance to show off to the world. 10 years ago today, climbing out of New York for the very last time, Concorde's celebrity fans were emotional.
I'm very sad for the future of civil aviation because, as far as I'm concerned, this was a huge step in technology.
It's really odd that something that was technologically brilliant should be just fading away. It's not what usually happens with successful inventions. They usually go on and lead to others.
Thousands turned out to say goodbye as the last 3 Concordes floated gracefully into Heathrow. Today, they're scattered around the world as museum exhibits, like Concorde Alpha Charlie here in Manchester.
Now this is an incredible place to be, on the famous wing of Concorde. Up close you can really see how beautifully smooth and curved it is. It's such an iconic shape. Even up in the air you can identify this plane anywhere. Now you always think of Concorde as being a luxurious plane because whenever you see pictures of people on it, they tend to be sipping champagne, they tend to be rich and famous, but it's actually pretty Spartan inside. You were paying for the speed, not the luxury. And just look at how small the windows are.
Martin Robson flew this very plane around the world.
Magnificent could be the only word to describe it. It was so responsive. We flew the aeroplane at its maximum all the time because it was designed to fly at that speed. It was more economical at speed. I know the reasons why it was retired. I mean, commercially, sheer money. But because it is so nice, such an icon, you know, for the British public, it was so sad to see it go.
Tragedy in France 13 years ago marked the beginning of the end for Concorde. More than 100 people died in the Paris crash, and although she flew for 3 more years, terrorism and recession took their toll. From those first takeoffs in the late 1960s,
she flies, Concorde flies at last,
to her final landings, there was never another plane like Concorde, and there still isn't.
Now, we've put a longer interview with Martin on the BBC website, so if you go on, we've got him on the flight deck and he's talking through these controls, obviously designed in the 50s but still relevant today. For example, if you want to go fast, that's what you do, and you flick these buttons up and that's the reheats. That's where you get the flames out of the back when you want to go above the speed of sound. Oh, ignore that. And here we've got a speedo, basically, it goes up to Mach 2, and this little knob here, that's how you put the nose down. You know, the nose has to tip down for when you land this thing. I mean, what happens next is the big question. I spoke to British Airways because there is a long-standing campaign to get a plane flying again, a heritage flight, basically, to celebrate occasions around the country. British Airways still telling me, look, there is no way that is going to happen. It's just too complex to get this machine back in the air. And will anyone ever design something like this again? Well, I kind of doubt anything similar to this, although Sir Richard Branson, if you go again on my article on the BBC website, he's basically told the BBC he wants to use his space plane to get people from London to Sydney in 2.5 hours. Can I show you one quick thing? It's a really tight flight deck here, so it's really hard to get the camera around. I just want to show you this. There's a gap there, OK? Now, Concorde expands by 8 inches when it gets hot, when it's going fast. That gap opens right up. And right towards the end when they were retiring, and the engineers put their caps in there so that when they landed, the gap closed up again and they were in there like a little time capsule. So you might see a little peak of a cap coming out there if you get on a Concorde at the moment.